Max?
Oh,
do you know what time it is?
Oh, I do.
It's time for the Air Raid Center. It's time for Monday Morning Fallout. Monday Morning Fallout, of course, when we overreact to everything from the football weekend. And once again, it was a long football weekend.
That it was.
I watched a lot of football.
That it was.
There was a lot of football sports, and started on Friday night, on into Saturday, leading up.
If you're a Texan, it was a full football weekend because you had the Cowboys last night, right? Yeah,
it really was. I mean, you had some big Thursday night action on into Sunday. It was a full weekend. But let's get into Monday Morning Fallout. We'll start with my 3 big thoughts. The first thought is playoff jockeying. So the biggest results that we saw from the weekend were not necessarily how do I want to say this? They weren't. The biggest news wasn't necessarily who won and who lost.
Right.
But
I think we have a good feeling for who these teams are for
Correct.
the most part. A couple teams stood out. But
Sure.
Other than that,
I don't think there were a ton of really huge upsets, but what I do think stood out was the ability for these teams to jockey for position.
Right.
There were 2 that stood out to me. For example, Smithson Valley's win over Converse Judson down in the San Antonio area.
Both impressive and good for playoff jockeying.
Yes. One, that kind of solidifies them as the team you don't want to run into right now.
Right.
They've just beaten Sybil of Steel, or rather, they just beat
Judson.
Schertz Clemens, and now they've beaten Judson. This is a very, very hot Rangers team.
Yeah.
It's looking very good. More importantly,
Only lost by 7 to Steel, right?
they gave Steel a run, and then their other losses too, I don't remember. But the biggest thing that Larry Hill's Rangers did was that they clinched the Division I seed, or the top seed in Division I. Mm-hmm. And that means that Converse Judson is now the number 2 seed in Division I. Now, you may be saying, oh, Tepper, I don't know what that means. That means that Judson's going to be playing San Antonio O'Connor in the first round. And that is
no breeze.
Trouble.
Yeah.
That is big-time trouble for a team we had legit state title aspirations for, as recently as 2-3 weeks ago. It's heading into that Steel game. All of a sudden, they could be one and done, very realistically, because this is a very good O'Connor team. The other one, and we kind of had our eye on it, was out west in District 2 6A, where there were 2 very big games. First, San Angelo Central beats Midland to clinch the district title. So, hip hip hooray for San Angelo Central. That's good. But perhaps the bigger win for San Angelo Central came when Friendship beat Midland Lee, because that means Friendship gets into the playoffs, which bumps San Angelo Central up to Division I. We've mentioned this before. I think 6A Division I in Region 1 at that left side of the bracket is a lot more manageable than Division II. Mm-hmm. And we are now, in my view, on a collision course for Allen versus San Angelo Central. So that's the kind of playoff jockeying we had our eye on Friday night. I know, I'm excited too, man. I'm excited too. It's going to be great. It's going to be great.
I've got to be there if it happens.
Number 2, regression to the mean. So I think I figured out college football in Texas.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
As it's presently constituted.
Period.
Well, I don't know. I have a feeling we're going to I'm going to have some counters to this, but go ahead.
Okay. I think there are 2 teams that are outliers. I think at the very top, there is, I think at the very top, you've got A&M. I think Texas A&M is the best team in the state. They're the outlier. On the very bottom, you've got Rice. Rice is very bad. They're the outlier. I think they're the worst team in the state. The other 10 teams are different shades of average, and I think we've found this out. This was a good week for regression to that mean.
Right.
Baylor fell back to earth with a really lackluster loss to Texas. Then teams like North Texas or teams like North Texas we thought may be able to separate from the pack. They lose to UTSA. I think you had a lot of games that indicated that all of these teams are just falling back to this big mediocre middle. TCU and Tech win about as mediocre as you could possibly want. So you've got these 2 outliers, and then all those other 10 teams kind of squunched together. Now the top of that is better than the bottom of that.
Right.
But I also think that they are closer than a lot of people think.
Sure.
I just think that overall there's a big middle in Texas football this year.
Yeah.
And number 3, no drama. I'm looking at the playoff races across the state, and don't get me wrong, there are intriguing games all over the state. But I feel like in past years, there's been a lot on the line. Like, coming into the last week, there's been a lot of playoff spots that are not clinched. There's been a lot of win and end games. And this year, I feel like we don't necessarily have that in mass. Right. Not as much as we've had in the past. That a lot more of the playoffs is settled right now than it has been in week 10 of past years.
Which is, I mean, the drama would be fun in the final week, see where some last-minute changes happen. But for us, I think you and I are having fun already looking at projections.
Sure. And there are, look, I don't mean to say that there's nothing on the line, because there's a lot on the line. There's differences between second and third place in 4A and below districts. And there's district championships on the line. San Antonio, here's a perfect example, okay? Perfect example. Yeah. San Antonio O'Connor is going to play San Antonio Brennan for the District 28 6A title. That's going to be awesome. I'm really excited about that Thursday night game. Guess what it means for the playoffs? Diddly. Yeah. Doesn't mean anything. Yeah. And there's a lot of those games across the state. So those are my 3 big thoughts. 3 helmet stickers. Let's start. Guy we could put on this list every week. Probably, China Spring quarterback Cutter Haygood. He runs 12 times for 161 yards and 3 touchdowns. He also throws 12 of 14 for 176 yards and 3 touchdowns. 6 total touchdowns for this China Spring quarterback Cutter Haygood. Texas running back Dante Foreman.
Nice day.
The guy who was, supposed to be the throw-in.
Yeah.
He was supposed to be the secondary part of the package deal.
Yeah.
With Armani Foreman, his brother, who's also very good.
Yeah.
But he runs for 250 yards and 2 touchdowns on 32 carries. What a workhorse he was for the Longhorns in their big win over Baylor. And Meridian linebacker Heston Germstead. This kid had a game. My goodness. So he goes 21 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, and 2 sacks for Meridian. Heston Germstead gets a helmet sticker from me. 3 teams to watch. Cy Ranch, 9-0. They have now clinched at least a share of the District 17 6A title. They look like they are probably going to win that district title with a literally last second field goal to beat Cy Ridge. Great win for the Mustangs. They are 9-0, and a team you need to know about. Another team in that Region 3 of 6A Division 1. It's going to be just a meat grinder. Sam Houston State. I don't know if you know this, but the Bearcats are 8-0 and
Shocking.
Rolling. They get a big win over Texas Southern. There's still some tough games on the schedule, but they are once again going to be, barring some epic collapse, they're once again going to be in the FCS playoffs, and they're once again going to be one of the teams that has a legit shot to bring home a national title. And El Campo.
Told you not to worry about this one, man.
El Campo hands Stafford their first actual loss of the year.
Right.
Stafford entered the game at 9-3, but those 3 losses were forfeits because of use of an ineligible player. But finally, El Campo comes out and puts a great win together. Wayne Condra's Ricebirds are now 9-0. They're going to win that district. They're a very dangerous squad. 3 teams to worry about. Georgetown. So Georgetown is 7-2, and you're saying, but Tepper,
it's only 2 losses.
Why would I worry?
It's a great record.
Why would I worry about? Georgetown when they're clearly doing so well? Well, for a number of reasons. First of all, I think that's a pretty soft 7-2. I'm not sold on it. The other part of it is that District 19 5A, and Craig Way can explain this a lot better, they have one of the wackiest tiebreakers in the state.
It's convoluted, man.
They go plus-minus 17 on point differential. They get a 47-3 win over Bastrop Cedar, or rather they were open last week, but that was their last win. Now they go into a game with Pflugerville-Connolly. And if they lose this game to Pflugerville-Connolly, which I think they were, it's going to be very, very close, Georgetown could be on the wrong end of this tiebreaker for the 3rd consecutive year. They could be the odd man out. Yeah. So Connolly needs to come, or rather Georgetown needs to come out and take care of business. A little worried about them. TCU. This team's just not very good. And they finally pull Kenny Hill in favor of Foster Sawyer, although Foster Sawyer didn't light the world on fire.
Honestly, I felt like it was too late in the game to do it anyway.
Sure.
Like, he didn't really have enough time to get anything going.
I mean, he was fine. Right. He was about what you expect for a backup quarterback coming in. So TCU, team to worry about. And McAllen. McAllen loses to La Jolla Palmview 34-14, and that's extremely problematic for them. McHigh could be on the outside looking in District 36A now because of that loss. They need a win this week at Mission to get into the playoffs now, and it's problematic now for the Bulldogs. They're now 3-6 on the year, a very lackluster year for the Bulldogs. They need to pull it all together right about now if they're going to get into the playoffs, because right now their 2-5 record or 2-3 record in district play is not going to cut it. So watch out for McAllen.